All right, Miles. Let's talk about one of our favorite teams to talk about in college football. That is, of course, Coastal Carolina. Obviously, near and dear to your heart. You lived in Conway, South Carolina, for a very long time. I know you're a big fan of that program, big fan of that area. And this is a program that has been on the rise over the last few years, obviously. And after, of course, beating Southern Miss last weekend without star quarterback Grayson McCall, who's unfortunately sidelined with a foot injury, Coastal Carolina finds himself for the third straight year ranked in the top 25. Multiple polls had the Chanticleers breaking to the top 25 this weekend. Again, the third straight year they've done that. Impressive for a program that's still relatively new to Division 1A. They become quite a powerhouse up there in Myrtle Beach, Mice. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this program and how you think their season is going to end up. But before I hand it over to you, Coastal Carolina fans, we want to hear from you in the comment section below. Look, it's been a great season. This is a great program with a lot of great players, but we want to hear from you guys specifically. Give us your MVP so far this season. There's a lot of big names, a lot of really nice players. Obviously, McCall is probably going to come up a lot, but we want to hear from you guys specifically. Give us the guy you think who's had the biggest impact on this program at this point in the 2022 season. But Myers, what are your thoughts on Coastal Carolina?
First of all, Nick, I'd like to commend you on your knowledge of Coastal Carolina. You know more than College Game Day did, because when they came to Coastal, they mistakenly stated that Coastal was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which it
No.
is not. It is in Conway, South Carolina. And I appreciate that you did your research and you knew that fact. So, hats off to you, Nick, because Coastal is squarely in Conway, South Carolina, not in Myrtle Beach. So I'd like to get that on the record. But like you said, Nick, it's so impressive for the third year in a row. Coastal has bounced back into the top 25. And ever since transferring to the sunbelt Conference, Nick, they have been a perennial powerhouse there. I think, like we said, they've even clinched the sunbelt already this year. So
The Sun Belt East.
their division to make
Yeah.
it to the sunbelt, the championship game. But they're just such a talented team coming from such a small area out of nowhere. Obviously, if people don't know the history, Coastal was started out as a branch of the University of South Carolina. They were affiliated and then they broke off on their own, and now finally they are a full-fledged, completely separate school from South Carolina. They're their own school, own football team, all kinds of stuff. And, I think maybe they're even better than South Carolina at football at this point in time. And it might be a little bit surprising to say, but the numbers don't lie, Nick. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I mean, I think USC, University of South Carolina, they're not ranked, right? They're
nope.
unranked right now. So there you go. They are better, I guess.
Yeah. And then Coastal also, they played the same team this season. USC played Georgia State at the very first game of the season. Coastal has also played Georgia State. USC had quite the time with Georgia State. They had a battle all the way to the very end where they pulled away in the final minutes of the fourth quarter, where Coastal handily beat Georgia State 41-24. So that's another feather in the cap as to why they are the superior team. But Nick is getting close to the end of the season. Bowl game season is coming around, and I think this Coastal team, if they can finish out this season, they are deserving of a pretty high bowl game this year, don't you think?
100%. In fact, I think if they win the Sun Belt, and who knows what's going to happen against Virginia, maybe they could beat them as well. Obviously, James Madison to wrap up the year. But if this is a one-loss team, or frankly, even a two-loss Sun Belt champion, you can make a strong argument that this should be a New Year's Day 6, group of 5 bowl, because they do allocate some bowl resources in those group of 6 games. I'm sorry, those New Year's Day 6 games, I should say, for group of 5 programs. A lot of numbers there in a single sentence. But I think there's a strong case to be made here that Coastal Carolina is the best program in that group of 5. I mean, Cincinnati's kind of not as good as they were last year, obviously, with all the players they lost to the NFL. I really can't think of a mid-major, so to speak, program as good and as consistently good as Coastal Carolina has been. And I really hope this team, because obviously we're connected to the South Carolina area. I think this is a special program. I think they got the potential to continue to grow and develop. I really do hope they make it into this late run and get into those New Year's Day 6 games, because I think that would be just an awesome environment, not just for Coastal, but all college football, because this team led by a Jamey Chadwell, who I actually played against a Jamey Chadwell coach team in college. They're a very well coached team, fun offense with that kind of shotgun, funky little option. It's a pseudo option. It's a little different than a lot of teams are used to playing. I think they're a great program, a lot of great players, and be better for college football to see Coastal on a more national level.
Yeah, Nick. And if they don't make a New Year's Six Day Bowl, I think that the people of Myrtle Beach, I think they're a little bit jealous of the school down in Conway, but they need to consider bringing Coastal to the Myrtle Beach Bowl. It's a perfect
Mhm.
fit. I think it just makes sense for them to be there. They'll sell that thing out instantly. Last year when South Carolina, North Carolina were in the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl, that was a classic one as well because it was right around in North Carolina. It sold out. It was an epic game, but I think Coastal being in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, if they don't make a big time bowl, is also a recipe for success. So we got to think about that. But Nick, to finish everything off, the last thing we were asking people, who is your standout? Who's a player that you're watching on Coastal team? And a guy that I was looking at, Nick, is none other than young cornerback Lance Boykin. And he's been primed and he is selected, not primed, is the East West Shrine Bowl breakout defensive player of the week for his performance in the big win over Southern Miss last week. In this season, he transferred to Coastal from JMU, and he's been a stud so far. He's rallied over 70 tackles. In this past game alone, he 7 tackles in this game. He's just been a stud, Nick. He's gotten a ton of turnovers this season already. I believe he's had 3 turnovers this season so far. And he's just a guy that came onto the scene on this Coastal defense. They lost a lot of key playmakers in the secondary and the backfield. And I think he's taking the stand to be a strong leader on this Coastal team.
Oh, 100%. And you brought up this before, obviously, because of your Ravens ties. You're an Isaiah Lackley fan who's from Coastal Carolina as well. This team is stocked full of NFL players and elite level talent. And you see it whether it's at the cornerback position or the quarterback position with McCall. This is a legitimate big time program with NFL type players. We saw it last year. We're seeing it this year. This is a great group. And across the board, there's a lot of exciting players that have really made their mark so far this season.